The key to Sarada Devi's interior life, its depth and magnitude, lies first and foremost in her relationship with Sri Ramakrishna, the Avatar. To even attempt to study her spiritual experiences, ranging from aspects of Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, we must first go to the source, her relationship with Sri Ramakrishna as the spiritual consort of an avatar, and all that that means. First, I suggest that Sarada Devi's spiritual realms as divine consort and how they may relate to the confines of particular philosophical schools circumscribe the depths of her inner realms, which go far beyond the human capacity, even of the great mystics. For example, Sri Ramakrishna attained the culmination of his Ramabhava with the vision of Sita. But why Sita, we may ask? Sarada Devi herself once disclosed Sita is an aspect of Rama. This statement is essential in attempting to fathom the divine relationship of the Avatar and his consort, not only of Sita, but of Sarada Devi herself. For example, while on pilgrimage to Rameshwaram, she beheld the image of Shiva and remarked to Sarada, her companion, "It is just as I have left it," referring to one of her previous incarnations as Sita. Sri Ramakrishna also divulged his relationship to Sarada Devi as Sita. What does this mean? Just as Sita is an aspect of Lord Rama, so by extension, so also is Sarada Devi an aspect of Sri Ramakrishna, both of whom previously manifest in the Rama incarnation. As Avatar and his divine consort, they are in fact two sides of the same coin, as Swami Premananda once declared. To me, Sarada Devi's choice of the word aspect means that the consort of the Avatar does not experience her divine relationship with the Avatar solely within the spiritual experiences of Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, or even Advaita. Sita being an aspect of Lord Rama means she was a part of him, seated in the vast realm of his heart. Likewise, Sarada Devi, being an inseparable aspect of Ramakrishna, was as his divine spouse, seated in his heart. That is why Ramakrishna promised Sarada Devi, at the last moment, "I shall lead by the hand all those who will come to you." Once Mother divulged their joint spiritual identity, know for certain that the Master and I are one. Don't see us separately. The Master himself had disclosed to her that he would dwell in her body in a subtle form. Furthermore, Sarada Devi's spiritual power emanated not only from her identity as a consort of Sri Ramakrishna and the consort of his previous incarnations of Rama and Krishna, and all previous incarnations as she herself disclosed, but as the goddess herself of many aspects. For example, she appeared to the devotee Chandra Mohan Datta as Mother Kali, when one day while visiting the Udodhan, he was instructed by Swami Shuddhananda, later president of the order, to ask Holy Mother for liberation. When he went upstairs to her room to prostrate before her, he then looked up beneath her veil and was struck to behold the face of Mother Kali and ran from the room. Also, on rare occasions, Sarada Devi herself avowed her own divinity. And when Ketu once said, "Mother, no one will care for the goddesses, Shashti, Sitala, etc. after you," Mother replied, "Why should they not? They are only my own parts." Now, with the limited tools, resources, and knowledge at my disposal, I shall try to examine the depth and range of Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Advaita, those experiences Sarada Devi also embodied. How then Does Sri Ramakrishna's superhuman breadth and depth of spiritual experience relate to those of his chosen bride and consort, Sarada Devi? No event in Ramakrishna's life was performed without a purpose. He was married to Sarada Devi when he was 24 years old, and then provided Sarada Devi with an unfathomable depth of spiritual training and darshan, a transmittable fund of knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna vested her with sacred mantras to bring his mind down from various exalted states. He taught her various spiritual disciplines, kirtan, meditation, samadhi, and even the knowledge of Brahman. But he also saw in his wife the veritable manifestation of the Divine Mother and worshipped her as the goddess Shodashi, the ultimate fruition of his training. Swami Nikhilananda explained, Sri Ramakrishna surrendered at her feet the fruit of his austerities and spiritual endeavors. Sarada Devi became conscious of a new power and was awarded a special status rare in the spiritual history of the world. Sri Ramakrishna recognized Sarada Devi as a real partner in life, the full share of his spiritual glory, a teacher to complete the task he had begun. In other words, by her very relationship to Sri Ramakrishna as consort and co-partner in spiritual life, and as a recipient of the Shodashi Puja, Sarada Devi was invested with the power and capacity to experience the various spiritual realms her husband Sri Ramakrishna had first experienced and explored, those broadly defined by Hindu philosophers as Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. How then did Sarada Devi embody the spiritual moods of the three schools of philosophy? What we do know is that throughout her life, Sarada Devi worshipped the Master as her chosen deity and built her own life by following his example. We cannot claim that she embraced the particular philosophies of Madhva, Ramanuja, or even Shankara, because she was not a philosopher. Furthermore, she transcended philosophy. As the consort of Sri Ramakrishna, an avatar and the embodiment of the Mother Goddess, she was endowed with a God-given spiritual power and capacity that most certainly surpassed that of the great Madhva, Ramanujan, and even Shankara. Realized souls, no doubt, but not assigned the same extraordinary divine status as Sarada Devi. Third, Sarada Devi by nature kept her spiritual life hidden to a great extent. However, one finds from available descriptions that she attained a variety of superconscious states and such a depth of God consciousness that resemble in part realizations stemming from those three schools of philosophy. From her teachings, we're also able to cull substantial clues of what philosophical realms she may have entered. First, let's see what how dualism, the core attribute of Dvaita, manifested in Holy Mother's life. Sarada Devi's dualistic spiritual practices and routine are well documented. Sri Ramakrishna trained Mother to perform a daily dualistic worship and sit for japa and meditation for about 1.5 hours. In the evening, she lit the lamps, waved the incense burner before the deities, and again sat for meditation, dualistic devotions. Throughout her life, she performed the daily simple puja. What then were her dualistic experiences? In 1911, when Sarada Devi was at Jaramati and was finishing the Master's worship before the Jagadatri worship, she spoke to the Master's photo. Do finish your meal early, for I shall have to go there. She actually saw him tasting the food. Dr. Lal Bahar Sen, to whom Sarada Devi offered Sri Ramakrishna's prasad, asked Mother if the Master can be seen, and she replied, yes, nowadays he comes at times and wants to eat khichdi and cheese. During Sri Ramakrishna's lifetime, Mother often had moods of rapt absorption, but we do not know whether along with that self-forgetfulness there was any external expression known to herself or to others. Perhaps such spiritual ecstasy was kept in check because of the Master's condemnation of it. But one day, Mother requested Yogin Ma, pray to him, meaning Sri Ramakrishna, that I might have a little spiritual ecstasy. Yogin Ma asked the Master, but he did not respond. However, when Yogin Ma returned to Sarada, who was engaged in worship, she saw her laughing and weeping, tears flowing from her eyes, until she finally became silent and merged in samadhi. Due to the facts that this occurred early on in Sarada Devi's life, during her puja and in answer to her prayer, this points to a Dvaitic or perhaps even a Vishishtadvaita experience. It's impossible to tell, but it resulted from a dualistic approach, from a Dvaitic approach. In this way, Sri Ramakrishna awakened the dormant power in young Sarada. Sarada Devi received many visions of Sri Ramakrishna, her chosen ideal. For example, after his Mahasamadhi, when Sarada started to remove her bracelets, Ramakrishna appeared in his body just as it was before his disease, and took hold of her hands and said, "Have I died that you are removing the signs of a married woman from your wrists?" She then desisted from doing so. When on pilgrimage in Varanasi, after the Master's passing, her spiritual fervor was so highly kindled in the Vishwanath temple that she divulged, "The Master had led me by the hand from the temple." It's also interesting to note that while on pilgrimage to Puri, after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, Sarada Devi carried the photo of Ramakrishna under her cloth in order to show him Lord Jagannath, because she believed that the picture and its prototype were the same. In other words, to her, Sri Ramakrishna's photo was living. These are some examples of Sarada Devi's dualistic experiences. What then were her dualistic teachings? To some devotees, she taught prayer by sharing her example. She said, "When I was in Vrindavan, I used to visit Bankabahari and pray to him, 'Your form is bent, but your mind is straight. Kindly straighten the windings of my mind.'" To others' worship, she instructed one sannyasini of another order. "From time out of mind, innumerable people have worshipped images and thus attained spiritual knowledge. Can you deny this fact?" And for others, Karma Yoga. "Work keeps the body strong and the mind pure. One can cut the bond of attachment by performing action, and then comes non-attachment. One should not live without performing action, even for a moment." About japa and meditation, she said japa, meditation, and prayer are especially needed. One should sit up at least in the morning and evening. When one sits up for a while in the evening, there comes to one's mind for consideration what one has done throughout the day. Then one has to compare the state of mind one has today with what one had yesterday. And one should meditate on one's chosen deity as one goes in doing japa. How can you know how you are conducting yourself unless you have japa and meditation every morning and evening, side by side with work? Yet she also counseled one devotee, through japa and austerity, the bondage of karma is cut asunder. But God cannot be realized unless through love and devotion. Did the cowherds get Krishna by japa and meditation, or by talking to him intimately, as, "Come here, dear, take this, dear, eat this, dear"? How then did Vishishtadvaita manifest in Sarada Devi's life? Which of her spiritual experiences reveal aspects of that particular realm? After Sri Ramakrishna's passing, Sarada Devi went on pilgrimage and there were times when her spiritual mood intensified. In the Gopi Gita, when Sri Krishna disappeared from his sport with the gopis, overpowered with grief, they began to long for him and came to eventually identify mentally with the object of their love, so much so that they began impersonating him. In Vrindavan, Mother now began to experience a similar self-absorption. Forgetful, she sometimes wandered across the vast sandy shore of the Yamuna and had to be searched out. Swami Gombirananda wrote and pondered. One does not know. She might have then thought of herself as Radha, the sweetheart of Krishna, and of Sri Ramakrishna as Krishna, and was thus lost in the bliss of union in the Vrindavan of her heart. It is said that she once told a devotee, I indeed am Radha. In this connection, Sarada Devi may well have been experienced elements of a state what Ramanuja defined as Vishishtadvaita. Swami Prabhavananda explained in his spiritual heritage of India that Ramanuja was at heart a Bhakta who preserved his distinction from Brahman in order to enjoy the bliss of divine love. Now the concept of the Antaryami, or inner controller, describes Brahman's immanent presence within all beings and the universe. For example, in the Gopi Gita, when Sri Krishna disappeared from his sport with the gopis, overpowered with grief, they began to long for him and came to eventually identify mentally with the object of their love, so much so that they began impersonating him. We find similarities of such ecstatic behavior in Holy Mother's life. Swami Yogananda, a direct disciple of Ramakrishna, who was Holy Mother's attendant during her 1886-1887 pilgrimage to Vrindavan after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, related an in-depth description of her mystic union with Sri Ramakrishna. He explained, one day her women companions found her absorbed in deep samadhi. They uttered the name of the Lord in her ears and tried to bring her mind down. I repeated the name of Sri Ramakrishna with all my strength. Then the mother seemed to return to the ordinary sense plane. During such periods of ecstasy, he continued, her manner of speech, her voice, her way of taking food, her way of walking, and her general behavior were exactly like those of the Master. We have heard that in deep meditation, the worshiper and the worshipped become one. The scriptures mention a spiritual state known as detachment bhava, being at one with God. We have read in the Bhagavata how the gopis, unable to bear separation from Krishna, became so absorbed in the thought of him that for the moment they forgot their own individualities and behaved as though they were Krishna. In the same manner, the mother too forgot her own separate existence and acted just like the Master, feeling her oneness with him. With Sarada Devi as divine consort, not only do we see a line of demarcation in states of divine moods between her and other mystics in terms of intensity, depth, and duration of a spiritual mood, but also in variety. Shortly after the culmination of this Vishishtadvaita Bhava with the Master as her beloved, she then, according to Swami Yogananda, entered a serene, blissful mood, expressing an eagerness to visit the various temples of Vrindavan for darshan or to visit the various holy spots on the banks of the Jamuna, associated with the divine sport of Krishna and the gopis. She was then in such a blissful state of mind that at times her yearning for Krishna's presence and her utterance of his name with intense love reminded us of Radha. So said Swami Yogananda. Yogananda then divulged, I have heard from her women companions that the mother at times spoke frankly of herself as Radha. Sarada Devi consort also became absorbed in the mood of Sita. Now, what were her Vishishtadvaita teachings? At one time, Sarada Devi explained, the Master is the basis of all that we are. He is the ideal. You will never take a false step if you hold on to him under all circumstances. However, Sarada Devi as divine consort also identified herself as the Antaryami in all, including animals. One cat always sought refuge near her, but also often stole food. Sarada Devi said, to steal is its dharma. Who is there always to feed it lovingly? One day, Gyan, her monastic attendant, became irritated with the cat and slapped the cat to the ground. Sarada Devi was pained. Scold the cat, but don't beat it. Please feed it regularly and see that it doesn't go to any other house to steal food. Don't beat the cats, for even in them am I. As divine consort, Sarada Devi revealed yet another unfathomable dimension of her mystic identity when she stated, what is Sri Ramakrishna? That I am. How then did the Dvaita Vedanta state manifest in Holy Mother's life? What were her Advaitic experiences? Swami Chirayananda once told Swami Prabhavananda, my teacher, Sarada Devi was always established in the Vishuddha Chakra, even when performing the most menial household tasks. Describing this state, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna we read, Ramal sang the lines, above in the throat is a 16-petaled lotus flower of smoky hue. Within the petals of this flower there lies concealed a subtle space, transcending which one sees at length the universe and space dissolve. The Master said to M, listen, this is known as the vision of Satchidananda, the formless Brahman. The Kundalini rising above the Vishuddha Chakra enables one to see everything as Akasha. Are there recorded examples of her transcending the Vishuddha Chakra? In May 1888, when Holy Mother was about 35 years old, she stayed with Yogin Ma and Golap Ma at Nilambar Babu's house at Belur on the western bank of the Ganges, opposite the Kasipur cremation ground where Sri Ramakrishna's body was cremated. Swami Yogananda and Advaitananda were her attendants. And Sri Sarada Devi in her divine play we read, during this period, Holy Mother experienced samadhi quite often. Yogin Ma recalled, one evening Holy Mother, Golap Ma, and I were meditating on the roof. When my meditation was over, I noticed that the mother was still absorbed in meditation, motionless in samadhi. After a long time, she retained some outer consciousness and said, "O Yogin, where are my hands? Where are my feet?" I pressed her limbs and said, "Here are your hands and feet." It took Holy Mother a long time to regain consciousness of her body. This kind of experience has been described as nirvikalpa samadhi, in which one completely transcends body consciousness. What then were her Advaitic teachings? Well, I'm going to end with her last message. Same-sightedness affected her actions, which overrode caste exclusivism and Brahmanical orthodoxy of her age. None will be rejected. Sarada Devi is universal mother and Vedanta Guru vowed. She accepted Amjad, the Muslim bandit, the prostitutes, alcoholics, untouchables, and foreigners at a time when orthodoxy was the social standard and such demonstrations of oneness met with harsh criticism. Based on Vivekananda and her Advaitic knowledge of oneness, she delivered her famous Advaitic proclamation that will live on eternally. I tell you one thing, my child, if you want peace of mind, do not find fault with others. Rather see your own faults. Learn to make the whole world your own. No one is a stranger, my child. The whole world is your own. This teaching is undoubtedly Advaitic, but it is more. What Sri Ramakrishna called the Vijnana state, beyond the state of jnana, our profound realization of Dvaita that seems evident from his own words. When he said jnana is like reaching the roof of a house by leaving the steps behind one by one, but the Vijnani, who is more intimately acquainted with Brahman, realizes that the steps are made of the same materials as the roof, bricks, lime, and brick dust. That which is realized intuitively as Brahman through the eliminating process of neti-neti is then found to have become the universe and all its living beings. Sarada Devi saw that everything is Brahman, and that even the subtle duality between Brahman and Maya disappears. There is no more contradiction between the world and Brahman. All is Brahman. Sarada Devi's teachings point to the truth that if and when we experience Brahman within, we will then see that same reality without. The world of appearances and apparent separation disappears. We realize the whole world is our own in the deepest sense, and that to me would seem to be the Dvaita of the jnana, which Sri Ramakrishna called the highest state.
Pravrajika ji for her, I would say, sublime meditation on Sri Sarada Devi. When I was listening to her, I think like reading that paper is like a meditation on Sri Sarada Devi. She pointed out how Sri Ramakrishna trained Sri Sarada Devi in all kinds of practices, dualistic and non-dualistic. How Sri Ramakrishna offered the results of all his realizations, dualistic, non-dualistic, to her in the Shodashi Puja. How in her teachings you find various kinds of dualistic, non-dualistic, qualified monistic teachings given when she taught others. How it is reflected in her daily routine, and most of all in her various experiences throughout her life, till the very end. Her teachings and her own, from her ecstasies, whatever we can infer as an observer. Our pranams to Revered Mataji for this meditative talk on Sri Sarada Devi's Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita realizations. Now it's your turn. So I hope you have some good questions ready. Our Shantanu is here, he'll conduct the Q&A session here. What do we do for microphone? Should I just share it there? Thank you.
Thank you, that will be great. I know we are running behind, we do apologize for that. On my right is Janmaja Ota with the microphone. On my left is Ritesh Hill. So, if you have any questions, please make it to either to your right or to your left. And we'll keep the Q&A session for today just a little bit shorter so that we can all... I know we are hungry for food, but we're also hungry for knowledge at the same time. How do you reconcile these differences? Let's find out. Q&A. Yes, and please let us know as to whom you'd like to address the question to. Yes.
Answer the question, and thank you so much all the Swamis and speakers for their so profound speeches. My question is that in Dvaita Vedanta, I have written down the question to make it clear. In Dvaita Vedanta, what is the established definition of moksha? Specifically, how does Madhvacharya describe the state of liberation, and how does it differ from the Advaita view of merging with Brahman, or the Vishishtadvaita view of qualified union with the God? Also, since in Dvaita moksha is not union with God, but eternal separation and service, how does Bhakti Yoga leads to liberation in this context?
There are multiple questions. We will need several sessions to answer your question, but we'll leave it to our Revered Swamijis to decide to answer whichever part of the question they do. Okay, I'm speaking too loud.
Yeah, too many questions, it cannot be answered first. So the question, only this question, that how in Madhvacharya's way of religion, the liberation of the soul can be defined. This is, as I have already mentioned, that the liberation is not about merging or disappearing. Like in the non-dual Vedanta, it says the individual soul disappears. There is no individual soul separately existing anymore. That is the idea of liberation in non-dualism. With that in your head very strongly implanted, if you are asking that any answer should be coinciding with your answer, no, that is not. So dualism says individual soul remains separate as the eternal dasa or the servant.